You're now tuning in to Global News Sports. How y'all doing out there, YouTube world? Well, back again today with another exciting announcement to make. And yes, it's regarding the Big 12. Now, I've been analyzing all the changes that have been occurring with the ACC and potential situations on what teams go where to what conference. And we always hearing about Clemson and Florida State, right? I made a video about 6 months ago discussing that the ACC will eventually become non-relevant and reduced in power structure. And the reason is even more so clear now than it was before. Now, real simple, right? We have two known members in the ACC that obviously would like to go to one of the other three power conferences, Big 10, SEC, Big 12, respectively. And on this journey of trying to do so, there's been lawsuits filed. Now, they haven't disclosed what conferences they would like to join, but it's obvious it would be out of those three. So with that being said, I've also analyzed the hearing that was just took place in North Carolina with Florida State. And to sum it all up, ESPN is now dragged into this as well. So now you have, Florida State, you have the ACC, and you have ESPN. And amongst those three, each one has their position established. Now, mind you, Clemson comes in and add their school to the lawsuit. Now, ESPN is only there to do two things: protect their contract and their trade agreement, so it's not disclosed to the public. And far as the back and forth between the ACC and Florida State, that is for them to decide and work that out. Now, let me tell you, ESPN is not happy with the fact that they do have to be involved in this matter. Now, look, another thing you have to understand, ESPN has that option in the clause of the contract to where they could decide to not move further if they don't see it beneficial for them to renew for another 9 years or pay out the rest of the funding and the remaining amount for the next 9 years up in 2025, February of 2025. Now, with that being said, right, I am telling you now, ESPN would like to continue to keep the ACC together so it can continue to do well in revenue, so on and so forth. But you have to understand, if that money is not going to the ACC, right, that they have been generating, where is it going to go? It's going to go to other conferences. And so, yes, there is money reserved for any members who will end up bringing in the schools that generate money for the ACC. Well, the problem is this: you have half of the conference that is divided, that wants to stay together, and you have the other half that don't. And we already know the ones that don't want to stay together, or should I say the ones who do want to stay, is usually going to start with those three colleges that everyone mentioned: Boston College, Syracuse, and Wake Forest. Now, I guarantee you, if one more school that is considered a known brand in the ACC file a lawsuit, another lawsuit on top of the two that's already been filed, right? If one more school come out and file with the ACC, ESPN will not be continuing its contract with the ACC. So next year, in February in 2025, you will see ESPN making the ACC available back on the market for renegotiating their contract moving forward. And we know what happens when a conference does not have an agreement with a network, a major network. Well, everyone starts to panic, and then that's when you have members meeting up with other conferences potentially, and then end up joining. So you can see, I give it next year around this time, and you'll hear about this beforehand. But if one more member of the ACC file a lawsuit against the ACC trying to get out of the grant of rights, ESPN will no longer put up with moving forward with renewing, adding the additional 9 years on the contract, which would then make the members available to go to other conferences, and the funds would be divvied that way to the conferences that they go to respectively. Now, those who see this is already on top of the ball, and you won't have to worry about these members paying an extensive amount of a exit fee for leaving, because the ESPN will dissolve the conference in itself. So a lot of people are waiting for this, and let's move to the Big 12, because that's what we cover. Okay, the Big 12 have many options available. Now, a lot of people always say, the typical schools that you mentioned, but I believe what would be good for the Big 12 is, as I already mentioned, they do need to establish themselves with the basketball brands of the ACC, which would include North Carolina, Duke, and those are the two major basketball brands inside of the ACC. But then we know it's not just about basketball. Football is important. So if you don't get Florida State and Clemson, which would be far-fetched for the Big Ten, but we know they are known for adding schools way across the country, and they got to travel expense. So if the SEC does not get those, the Big Ten does not get those two schools, then obviously it will be a hard fetch for the SEC to determine or convince members that those two schools should be in the SEC. And we know if that doesn't happen, then the only other spot would be the Big 12. Now, Miami, I keep hearing a lot of people discuss that Miami is Big 10 bound and so on and so forth. The SEC do not want to load their conference with a lot of Florida schools. And to be honest with you, Miami is second tier to Florida State in Florida, in the Florida market. So they're not attractive in that regard. Now, let me give a couple of pointers. Miami is a small private school, and they don't even have a stadium to play in. So all these things factor into branding and where they would fit. Miami would be a good fit in the Big 12. So would Duke. And there's others that would be a good fit in the Big 12. But if we're talking about brands, those two should be on Brett Yarmark's list of getting into the Big 12. If they don't get no other schools in the Big 12, those two brands is a must, period. Now, we hear talk about the Virginia schools. We hear talk about Louisville and also Virginia, Louisville and Pitt, and the other schools that are in the ACC. Now, remember, if this happens, it's a good chance that California and Stanford would end up back with the Oregon states and the Washington states, and continuing on with whatever they got going if ESPN does not renew, which is a strong possibility, as I mentioned. If one more school files another suit against the ACC, ESPN is going to dissolve this grant of rights that they have, or the option that's in the contract to not renew, which would cause the ACC to be open for realignment. And that's when you're going to see the schools go to the respective conferences then. And then that's when that clause of the look-in kicks in for the Big 12 and whoever else moving forward. And also, a lot of people must understand there are schools that want to be in the Big 12 that are currently in the ACC. So do not be misled or confused. There are schools currently in the ACC who wants to be in the Big 12. And I just mentioned two of them. And also, I just want to say this to the brands in the ACC. You have to look at it from the bigger picture, right? Think about this. If you know there's only 3 landing spots, and you know the Big Ten is full, the SEC is almost full, and they're limited to what they would bring in, don't you think that when you're building a business that you can build it together? Meaning, like, if you look at it, well, we can go to the Big 12, we can add more revenue to the Big 12. The Big 12 can be just as competitive as the other conferences, and we're talking about dollar amount moving forward, then that's a no-brainer. If you know that you're going to increase the value of the Big 12 by joining the Big 12, that's just as good as getting less in the SEC or the Big 10, because they're not going to give you full share. But it's like getting less, because the money is stretched thin already as it is, getting less there, and then also becoming a bottom feeder, because I guarantee you all of them schools that's going to the Big 10 and the SEC, it's overcrowded, and you're not going to receive full share, and you're not going to be competing for a championship. Now, the Big 12 has a plus because, for one, they have the potential to grow and room to earn more, and the Big 12 is also open to the best teams. It's not like top heavy to where one school is just has all the money, all the resources, all the marketing, all of the everything behind them, to where they're cutting out everything else and they're always at the top. Just know that you can win in the Big 12. You can have a shot at the national title game through the Big 12. And so you have to look at it in that perspective, not just, oh, they don't have all of the money right now, but you have to understand that they are part of the Power 3, and they have plenty of room to grow. They're going to continue to dominate in basketball. And if you joining the Big 12 adds value to the Big 12, then that's a no-brainer. Once again, global news here, just giving you a synopsis of what's been going on with the ACC and realignment, and what teams will go where. Once again, thank y'all for watching. Till next time, Global News Sports. Have a great day.